some winners and then we say let's go. So come on, it's time to watch the show. We're talking hardball, Ken Griffey's grotesquely swollen jaw. We're talking hardball, over under on the
Welcome into a Hump Day edition of Betting Weekly Hardball. I'm Doug Kezirian alongside professional handicapper Wes Reynolds as we have several day games underway. We'll look at those from an in-game betting angle and also look ahead to some games that have not got underway, but it is a busy stretch right now in the baseball season. And Wes, good to be with you.
Good to be with you, Doug. Busy day with a lot of rainouts last night, so we got a lot of double headers going today.
Yeah, 3 rainouts, and we just want to remind everyone to like and subscribe here on the Bet Rivers Network. We are every single day during the week, that is, weekdays, Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, and we've been on a little bit of a heater. Wes, I've been, we talked about it on yesterday's show with the Bull, 11-2 after yesterday's 3-1 mark. So I'm 11-2 over my last 5 appearances on this show, and I just did a little homework, and you are 6-3 runs. So hopefully I don't jinx it.
Yeah, love to keep this going here. As now, with basketball being over, even though we still have WNBA, of course, and all the free agency news with basketball and the calm before the storm, before we all get wrapped up in the football, baseball is certainly center stage from a betting standpoint.
Yeah, so let's keep it going and don't need to force anything. You mentioned 3 rainouts yesterday, so that's why we have a lot more early starts than predicted. The Raves were down at home against the Athletics, but just put up a 5 spot in the 6th inning. So behind Pepio, they lead 6-2 as that game has gone to the 7th. The Padres also struck early. They're up 5-0 thanks to a 5 spot in the 2nd. So that game in Philadelphia in the 3rd inning. And Pivetta, at least pitching well to start. So, again, that game rained out yesterday. So we have a doubleheader in Philly today. Keeping an eye on other games, Brewers and Mets. They also had a rain out yesterday. So they have game 1 underway. They are tied 1 run apiece in New York. Tigers up 7-0 as Trevor Williams continues to get lit up. So that game in the nation's capital, bottom 3 there. Tyler Holton going for Detroit. Anything stand out for maybe an opportunity to jump in on some games with the, Bet Rivers in-game lines as well?
Yeah, I already have the over. Unfortunately, wasn't on the air to give it out for this Tigers-Nats game, but just trying to look and see. And this will tie into a game later, which we'll get to down the line here. But this, of course, game 1 also of a doubleheader. Trevor Williams, I don't know how much longer he's going to remain in the game. He is at 86 pitches through 3 innings. Maybe they try to get him through 4 because they know they're going to have to use the bullpen, and you've got a game later on tonight. So I guess what I would look at here, potentially a possible middle if you have the over on the pregame, is to look under 13.5 on the runs, because now – it's like, are you going to get some quick hacks here? Nats are going to have to use that bullpen, and that's usually a concern. But the Tigers did get 6 in the 1st and then added another one in the 3rd. So, game in hand, sometimes you see these teams take a little bit of quick hacks. So would lean a little bit under 13.5 on the end game here from a run standpoint.
2 points I want to make. 1, when you have an over, and what was your over for the Tigers-Nats game here?
9.
Okay. So let's say, look, it's not done. Crazy things happen. We got there with the Rockies game yesterday, went under 11.5. It was like 9 in the 5th inning, somehow stayed under. But technically it would be a middle, but you really want to look at the under as a separate wager.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you only want to start worrying when like the live totals 10.5 or something like that. So with 13.5, you want to look at it as a vacuum because you don't want to give away a winner. So in a vacuum, and let's say you don't have the 9, would you look under 13.5 right now as an in-game possibility?
I would here because you had the Tigers, of course, today. They went with the opener. So they're going with the bullpen game because they have Flaherty going tonight, who's one of their regular starters. So Holton went two. Herter is now gone a full inning. He's probably going to go a couple more. So this is going to be a little bit of a bullpen piecemeal, which is a little bit tough for the other team. And the fact that you're now down 7-0. So you're going to be chasing maybe a little bit more to try to get back in the game. I mean, you're not going to get back in the game just keeping the bat on your shoulders necessarily. So when you're changing these bullpen games, you get different pitchers and you get different rhythms. So yeah, I think it's gonna be tough for the Nats. And look, it's baseball, and anything can happen, and it gets wacky sometimes. So that's why I don't do a ton of in-game baseball. I try to pick my spots a little bit, but I think Williams, and we'll see if he comes out here for the fourth. They might try to get one more inning out of him, so they don't, can save a little bit of bullpen usage. But yeah, I think the scoring's going to slow down here. So I would look at 13.5 for the under.
Okay, well, Bet Rivers, it just moved to 13. Under is -120. So something to keep in mind. I see some 12.5s elsewhere. So that 13, if you like the under, is probably the best mark in the market. Um, you know, good little food for thought, even for the future when you expect. Now, I know Wes on Wednesdays, which is why I love having you in the middle of the week, is you like to focus on some getaway days, some opportunities with both teams. Anything stand out with these with these games currently going on?
Yeah, not as many because we do have three double or game one of double headers going. So that's why, I think you have to see what you have in game one before you make game two wagers. Even though you know the starting pitchers, like we know it's going to be Flaherty and Gore, Detroit, Washington, and we knew that overnight. But it's so hard because of what we're seeing here. And now Trevor Williams, by the way, does get taken out of the game after 3 innings with a whopping 86 pitches. So you got to know what the bullpen usages are going to be. I think after game number one, and if it's close to, they chase the game in game one and maybe sacrifice the back end. So that's something you want to look at. And that's why I haven't seen like a ton of live opportunities necessarily. We do have a low scoring game though in Pittsburgh, going to the bottom of the seventh, 1-0. Mitch Keller, I think, is going to be done. Nice outing for Mitch Keller. He's had some tough luck this year because you look at that win-loss record. I think he only has 2 victories, but he's pitched better than in his win-loss record. So don't overrate a win-loss record because the Pirates, like Paul Skeens, he has 4 wins for this team, and this team's 13 games under 500. But Mitch Keller, a nice outing, 97 pitches in 7 innings. He's probably going to be done here. I can't see him going back out for the 8th, but Sonny Gray's starting the 7th here. Only 63 pitches. He's given up 1 earned. He is trailing the game, but usually when you get this deep in the game, they pull a guy, but they're not going to do that with 63 pitches. So just looking at that Bet Rivers price right now, it is Cardinals down, of course, 1-0 here in the 7th, and I got to wait for this to reload. Sorry about that. I'd look a little bit at the Cardinals, maybe on the run line. I'm not recommending this as a play, but if I were to get involved here, because Bet Rivers, they not only give you the money line, they give you the run line, +1,
Right.
+133. You do have Keller out of the game. Bednar's been solid on the back end. The Pirates have been playing a little bit better lately, but this is a Cardinals team that I think when you look and see they're going to have 2, 3, 4, so essentially the top of the order to start the 8th. That'd be one I would want to look at. Now we'll see if Sonny Gray doesn't make a mess of things here in the bottom of the 7th, but the pitch count is not a problem for him.
So
So
if you like how he's pitching, you feel like you're going to get 8, maybe 9. Well, you don't need 9 unless the Cardinals score.
mhm, yeah, you're at least, I think, going to get him. Let's say this is a 15 pitch inning, even though he does walk the leadoff man here now of Gonzalez. So now you can get a better price if you want to get involved with St. Louis on that run line or money line for that matter. But you got to think, okay, he was at 63 pitches to start the inning. If he goes 50 to if he's 80 or below, they bring him back out, I think, for the 8th.
Okay. Well, look, they had a 1-0 game yesterday. Pirates win 5 straight W's for the Bucks, and now they're up 1-0 here, bottom 7. But as Wes mentioned, leadoff batter gets on with a walk on a full count pitch. So Sonny Gray's only allowed 4 base runners now. That was his first walk of the game. He had scattered 3 hits. So pitching great. Just the Redbirds offense has been silent. In the 9th last night, they got second and third with 1 out, couldn't get the run home. Ground ball, infield, play at the plate, got him out. So then first and third, 2 out, and the Bucks get out of it. So Pirates playing some really good ball of late. As you mentioned, Wes, they're still considerably under 500, but they're 25 and 21 at home. So even in a competitive division and limited offense this season, they've done fairly well, all things considered. So we'll keep an eye on that game. We'll keep an eye on that Tigers-Nats game, which, still 7-0. So that game, trending towards the in-game under. We got a game coming up in a little bit. Some marquee games on Amazon Prime. The Yankees behind Max Fried lose in Toronto last night on Canada Day. So the Blue Jays erupt for double-digit runs. They're now just a game back of the Yankees in first place. So this is a high-profile game now. Barrios going for Toronto, a guy who's been kind of up and down his entire career, against Warren for the Yanks. Oh, we got some regression coming or occurring for New York. How are you looking at this game coming up with the Yanks small road favorites here?
Yeah, Will Warren, by the way, 315 on the xFIP in lieu of 437 for the ERA. So he might have a little bit of positive regression due. Batting average balls in play been a little unlucky at 322, where Barrios on the other side maybe been a little bit of fortunate at 271. But this Yankees team certainly has come back to earth, and Toronto now very much back in the mix in the AL East. And they were the team I liked at the beginning of the season, and then they really struggled. I think market's probably right here, Doug, with the Yankees somewhere in the 120-ish to like 123 range. Bet Rivers, by the way, at minus 129, so it looks like highest in the market. Pass for me. I'm really in line with the numbers here.
You don't really hear flat spot in the sport of baseball like you do others, but big win on Canada Day, right? Exciting. 2 home runs for Springer. Any flat element here for the home team?
Maybe could be a little bit, but Barrios, look, he is what he is. I think a solid pitcher, and doesn't really get you beat necessarily. I think he's got a little bit of regression coming, so I don't know if I necessarily want to back the Blue Jays. It would be Yankees or pass, but I think I'm going to leave it alone for now.
Okay, so Sonny Gray got a strikeout for the second batter, so it's 1-0 still Pirates, bottom 7, man on first, and Hayes at the dish for Pittsburgh. So we'll continue to monitor all of those. Padres had the bases chucked, 5-0 in the 4th, so that game could get really blown out. Tigers, we were talking about the under, now runners on the corners with nobody out, so they could be opening up a can. Jackson Rutledge on the bump for the Nats, so it's runners on the corners, no one out in the 4th inning. Could be a really long day for Washington. We'll keep it moving with other games. I love this guy. Is it Mizorowski? I'm not really sure, but he's been electric. The young pitcher for Milwaukee who got called up. Mets hosting the Brewers later today. I do not know who's going for New York, and hasn't really announced it. A lot could depend on today. So Brewers at Bet Rivers minus 118, over under 8.5. It's now up to minus 125 for game 2 at Citi Field. Anything stand out to you?
It might be a bullpen game in game 2 for the Mets. I thought I saw Tidwell, but I guess unlisted as of right now. So, it might be him, but that means probably a bullpen start. Clay Holmes, by the way, through 4 innings now, 63 pitches. So you would expect he's probably at least going to go into the 6th, bordering on the borderline of a bad 5th inning. But yeah, I'm waiting to see how this plays out a little bit before I get involved. And you're right about Mizorowski, how terrific he has been, and he's got strikeout stuff. Just looking at and perusing over his numbers here, 10.64 strikeouts per 9 innings. Does give up some walks though, so there is a little bit of danger with this guy. Yeah. He hadn't really been hit a lot, but the walks are the problem. 113 ERA, 322 on the xFIP, and 322 on the xFIP is not bad, but it indicates maybe you're going to get potential regression out of this young man. So gonna wait to see how this finishes up with the game still in the very much in the balance now going into the bottom of the fourth inning as the Mets do get Juan Soto on leadoff walk from Freddie Peralta. So I'm gonna wait on this one a little bit here. I thinking about fading the kid, but I don't know. I might pass here. I want to see what the bullpen usage is.
So game one, maybe not the outcome impacts how you would look at game two, but how
Yeah.
much the usage is there for Milwaukee.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I think there's a lot of bettors. And look, I've been guilty of it too in the past. You see a game, it goes over the first game, so you want to play the under, right? And in the turnaround here, if you will, just kind of zigzagging here. And I don't think that's always the way. You want to use it in a vacuum, and you want to use that first game, I think, more often than not for the second game. And what you're going to do is mainly the bullpen usage, and then also what batters are going to be in the lineup for the second game because we don't have the lineup announced. So, like for Mets Brewers, maybe Soto gets the night off, maybe Lindor gets the night off, and you don't know that. So that's why sometimes you got to wait a little bit and really play this waiting game when you have double headers, I think, and not instantly say, okay, well, this team won the first game, so I want to auto bet the other side in the second game.
Riley Green went yard for the second time in this game. That's a 3-run jack off Rutledge. So 3 more runs for Detroit without even getting another out in the fourth. 10-zip Tigers. It could be a really long day. Now the Pirates with Tommy Pham base hit get another run home. So a little breathing room. It's still only 1 out. First and second for the Bucks. They lead 2-0. Again, bottom 7. Padres have tacked on a run. There's 1 out now. It's 6-0 in the fourth. Bases still chucked. And then the more competitive game, Brewers and Mets 1-1, bottom 4. Keeping an eye on all these games. Coming up in a little bit, we have some streaks to address. We'll start on the north side of Chicago. Cubs hosting a Guardians team that has been scuffling, to say the least. 5 straight losses. And the offense is just putrid. One of my wins yesterday was the Guardians team total under 3.5. They got a 2 spot in one of the innings against Matthew Boyd, but that was the only scoring they did. Imanaga going for Chicago, $1.65 favorite. 8 is your over-under. Now, Imanaga not as dominant in my eyes as Matthew Boyd, but for me, the Guardians would be a team I would look at. I like Bybee. So I would look at the Guardians, maybe a team total under again. I just think this offense is just putrid, and your team totals 3.5, and the under minus $1.14.
And Shota, by the way, first start back was last Thursday off the injured list. Only went 77 pitches in 5 innings. Now, very effective. Didn't give up an earned run. Only gave up 1 hit and 1 walk and struck out 3. So you'd think, okay, maybe they stretch him out a little bit longer tonight. But how much longer do they go here? He's getting a scuffling offense, but, it takes usually, I think, a couple starts when a guy's off the DL because his last start was, I think, May 4th, I believe, was his last start before he went on the injured list. So he was out for the better part of close to 2 months. So, that's where I'd want to kind of look and see, okay, how do I play Shota? Because I think he's the key here. I think Bybee's been consistent. The win-loss record doesn't, really isn't anything to write home about, but you never want to look at that, I think, too much. So, I would want to look at Shota's props here, and that's what I'm trying to pull up as we discuss this. Shota, the K props are at about 4.5. I think that's about right where he should be, but outs 16.5. So you're seeing a little bit of a tax upward. I was hoping maybe it'd be 17.5, and then I would certainly look at the under because that means you're going 5 2/3. But you would think 16.5 would be the fair price because he was effective in the first start back, which is usually a really tough spot for a guy. I don't care what caliber of pitcher he is to come back from the injured list. And usually they kind of baby him in the first start, and they certainly did with the pitch count. He could have went a little bit longer than the 77 he went last week against St. Louis.
Okay. So no play. You don't like the Cubs minus the $1.65, maybe first 5 to isolate Imanaga?
I think it's a little bit overpriced here, and I think it's because of
Yeah.
what you mentioned with the Guardians scuffling a little bit at the plate.
They've been terrible. So, by the way, Sonny Gray, we jinxed him. He's out of the game. O'Brien's in from the bullpen for St. Louis, second and third. So big spot, high leverage for this game. IKF is on at the dish for Pittsburgh. It's 2-0, 2 outs, 2 strikes, 2 runners in scoring position for Pittsburgh, who lead 2-0. So keep an eye on that one as they go for their 6th straight win. The Mets have taken the lead, bottom half of the 4th. It's 2-1. And obviously that game far from over as opposed to some of these other games that certainly look decided. We'll keep it moving. I mentioned the streaks. Cleveland, 5 straight losses. Miami, the Marlins break up the Mammals, 8 straight wins, 1 away from tying a franchise record. Junk on the bump. I know it's a guy you circled in a prop in a recent show we did together. So Marlins have won 8 straight. They're facing the Twins, who are nothing special. And Miami's a home dog. Do you dare jump on this win streak with the Marlins?
Well, I don't know if I really want to go against it here because the Twins are having their own struggles now. They are 5 games under 500. They started very well in the season, but they've really fallen on hard times, and they've been kind of anemic at the plate. So Junk, he didn't go over a strikeout prop last time. They're trying to make this guy, and he's been a career reliever. They're trying to make him into kind of a back end starter, and doesn't really have bad stuff necessarily. 3.5 at the strikeouts. That's what he was last time, and that's probably where he should be, considering he did not exceed that. So I'd want to look maybe on the Woods Richardson side, and look to see 4.5 strikeouts. Would lean if you got a 4.5. Bet Rivers is 3.5, heavily juiced the over 167. At 4.5, it's certainly a play. I think to the under on Woods Richardson, where you'd have to lay about $1.40, $1.50 on that one. So they're giving you 14.5 on the recorded outs. This is not a guy that really goes deep into the game necessarily. So I want to attack his unders, but I think the market has it right. Just fewer edges now with some of these. And I will say on a lot of the pitcher props, I still think the best edge out there are the recorded outs, if you have those available to you, which you certainly do at Bet Rivers, more so even than the strikeouts. The strikeouts are a little bit harder now that you have some data, and you look, you could try to play that regression game where if a guy has a season high, a guy gets 9 and he was priced at 5.5, maybe you could go under the next game. But, I find that that's a little bit hit and miss if you do that. So recorded outs and I think hits allowed are a little bit better right now than the strikeouts and the earned runs.
All right. So a little food for thought, generally, bird's eye view approach getting in. I want to encourage everyone to join the conversation. Please, we'll get to your comments on this show. Good stuff across the board. Amish farmers, as IKF did deliver a base hit. It's now 4-0 Pirates as they go for their 6th straight win. Amish farmer pointing out St. Louis has been shut out 4 of the last 7 games, not including today. So on their way to the 5th shutout, maybe in their last 8. Adam Osimo chiming in. He's a Blue Jays fan. We learned yesterday. He said, let's go Blue Jays, and he can take over first place. So he's a fan, maybe not necessarily betting on them, and something to keep in mind. So Byron chiming in, Bucks putting it on St. Louis. If the St. Louis misses the playoffs, they will rue the season series versus Pittsburgh, perhaps missing a letter there, but I think that's what he meant. So we mentioned a couple streaks. It's not a baseball show without talking about the Rockies, who did salvage a run line win with a homer off Hader in the 9th last night that ruined my same game parlay. It turned from a 2-leg winner to a 1-leg winner and a push. So not the payout I was looking for, plus 225, but we still hung on. And the over-under did move to 11.5 later in the day. So Astros are over $3 favorites now with Hunter Brown on the bump against Gomber for the Rockies, who they had about a 500 stretch. I think they were 10-19 not too long ago, but now they're back to their usual losing ways, 2-9 in their last 11. 7 of those 9 losses by 2+ runs. So always a good approach to lay a run line, I think, in Rockies games, because when they win, you lose less, and they're usually going to lose by 2. So that's why I think it's smarter to do that. Although it's minus a buck 86 right now for Houston on the run line. You haven't been someone who gets involved in many Rockies games. Yesterday, it was only about $1.60 on the road. So Astros now 295 with that current adjustment at Bet Rivers. Anything stand out to you maybe on the total?
Yeah, I ended up getting involved last night, going with Colton Gordon under, where he did go under his outs, and that's probably the way I'm going to approach it again this time. But with Hunter Brown, I kind of like the under, and I don't think this is up, unfortunately, at Bet Rivers. But if you could find 5.5 under on hits allowed, Hunter Brown, he's not been getting hit a lot. He's been under 5.5 hits allowed in 13 of 16 starts. You know, he gets a lot of weak contact, and he doesn't really attack the zone either. So he'll allow you to get yourself out. And the Rockies, kind of an aggressive team, that'll get a lot of swing and misses and chase some pitches. Hunter Brown under 5.5 hits allowed is something that I would certainly look at. I think you get the discount because it's Coors, and because Coors totals are always high, and today is no exception. 10.5, and there's even some 11s juice to the under out there. But Hunter Brown has been very efficient for the Astros. Been kind of a nice story, and one of the reasons for their I don't want to say resurgence, or really surgence in general now that they're 17 games over 500. Just a 174 ERA. He's been maybe getting a little bit of lucky on the xFIP 242, but keeps the ball in the yard. So Hunter Brown hits allowed might be how I would attack it instead of just laying Astros money line here, which is, of course, now well north of about 270 at a lot of places.
Right. Okay. So Byron Merle chiming in on the comment section. White Sox, Dodgers, Yurfee, minus 129. What do you think? Now, Kershaw's going for LA. The White Sox got smacked yesterday. The offense not doing much, but Eisert's going for the Southsiders. Now, he's a lefty. Dodgers mash righties more so than anything. So that's something we've discussed. Any thoughts for you? I would say no. If anything, I would look at Nerfy, but you're not going to make a lot of money betting against that lineup with a bad pitcher.
Yeah, and I think Eisert, by the way, he's going to be an opener because this was overnight. This was slated to be Sean Burke going. So you got the lefty going, probably, to try to, attack maybe that early part of the Dodgers lineup. So they chose a lefty instead of the righty Burke. So Burke is going to get the bulk of the work here. For the Southsiders is what I would think, because that switches. And by the way, just a note for maybe those that are new betting baseball, I usually do listed pitchers, but if you have action, like that doesn't cancel your wager now, because this was originally Burke before they went to Eisert for the opener here. So if you have action, you're stuck with maybe the opener instead of if you were betting on Burke necessarily. So that's something we always want to point out, because every single day at sportsbooks across America, not limited here to Las Vegas, people are always confused about that, because most people, they want to bet a team like when they go to the window and they don't say listed pitchers. So that's something that you want to do. Because usually if I'm betting on a side or something like that, I'm betting on the starting pitcher. That's the first thing I'm looking at. So that's something to keep in mind. But in terms of the handicap for this game, lean a little bit over. Can't really get there at the current Bet Rivers price at 9.5, even though it's juiced to the under. 7 and 9, I think, are the most key numbers on total. So at 9 with some juice to the over, I would look over in this one because Kershaw, he's not going as deep in games anymore, Doug. And you follow this team really closely as a fan. He's more of a pitch to contact guy. Now he's not really a big strikeout guy. So maybe you could look at under 4.5 strikeouts as well, would be the angles I would look at on this game before I get involved in the run, yes, no run first inning.
All right. So no opinion for the Yurfee for our loyal listener. Was it Byron who was asking about that? Yeah. I mean, look, it's tough. That's a weird game when you have the White Sox, who are terrible offensively, but also bad pitching. And as Wes mentioned, an opener. So, God, that's That's a worlds colliding, if you will, for a bet on in the first inning.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's a gamble, and I wish I would have better advice for the listener. I just don't bet a lot of those because I
Okay.
don't find and I think one of the things you want to do when you have such a full menu at Bet Rivers and all across the sports betting landscape, you don't have to order every item. You know, look, you maybe monitor something and at least pay attention to it, but not wager at it. And then because you got to learn, I think, to pick that up. And that's not a market I have ever really. That doesn't mean I'll never say never. Maybe I'll do that a little bit more in like the playoffs or something when I have an isolated game rather than when I have like 15 games on the board, or 18, in fact, is what we have today. So that's not a market I really get involved in. Some people do very well in it, but for me, it's a little danger Will Robinson if I get involved in that.
All right, well said. And just a reminder, Wimbledon underway overseas at the All England Club. So we have content for you. Betting Weekly game bet match with Nigel Seeley and Sean Calvert preview tomorrow's round 2 matches on the men's side. So that show has dropped under the Betting Weekly umbrella and Bet Rivers Network here. And go check it out. We also want to encourage you to subscribe and like. A lot of good content out there, and the newsletter is absolutely fantastic. So in depth. And go check it out. Sign up, bettingweeklystudios.com. You got soccer previews, tennis brackets, and breakdowns, all the Bet Rivers odds, and of course, links to this show and all the others under that Betting Weekly umbrella. Wes, you mentioned some keeping an eye on some game 2s, depending on game 1s go. We got Padres Phillies game 2. They're currently in a one-sided game in favor of the road team. Dylan Cease, Christopher Sanchez are going to go later today. Tigers and Nats. Flaherty's on the bump against Mackenzie Gore in a game that's also certainly one-sided. 10-0 at last check for the Tigers, who get out of the inning. Nats had some guys on, so they'll go to the 5th. 10-zip. Tigers, you get your over. So congratulations on that. Padres up 6-0. Anything stand out to you for game 2s of those doubleheaders today?
Do we have, I don't know if we have this up at Bet Rivers yet, and I know there's a lot of stores that will take these down or maybe not offer them until later on in the afternoon when you have a day afternoon or early evening double header here. I was looking to see if I could find a Mackenzie Gore over strikeout prop, and I kind of teased that a little bit earlier in the program that I was monitoring what we saw in game number 1 where Trevor Williams, the starter, goes 86 pitches, only goes 3 innings. So the Nats obviously having to use the bullpen, but now that it's 10-0, they may pick a guy. Maybe it's the kid Rutledge here who did go 36 pitches in the 4th inning and gave up that 3-run homer. Maybe he's got to be the sacrificial lamb because the Nats can't use everybody, and they're certainly not want to chase a game at 10-0. However, they're going to want length from their starter in the second game, and that's Mackenzie Gore. So I think I've seen some over 6.5 strikeouts. It's not there at Bet Rivers right now. It may be up there, by the way, later this afternoon. So, yeah, so continue to monitor. He's gone down a little bit from his peak, Doug, but I think that's now been adjusted. And I think just the situation calls for, hey, man, this guy's got to go 6. Because, our bullpen, we're going to have some arms that we're not going to be able to use, obviously, later in the day. So Mackenzie Gore, if that gets posted at 6.5 strikeouts later this afternoon, that'd be one I'd target here.
Okay, so I am going to jump in as my first official play on game 2. I'm going to go Tigers Nationals Nerfy. It's a little pricey, but I'm okay. It's minus 130. Now, the Nats offense stinks. I think Flaherty will be ready. And the Tigers might be a little hungover from game 1 dominance coming in facing Mackenzie Gore. So I like Gore to be on point against this Detroit top of the lineup. And maybe, it goes a little sluggish for the Tigers after such a convincing win. I know you said a second ago you don't bet these usually, but do you have any issue with the lack of a carryover for the Tigers offense from game 1 to game 2?
Not necessarily. I would be looking, of course, at, Flaherty's been getting hit around a little bit lately, so maybe this could be the spot where he rebounds. He obviously has good strikeout stuff and usually racks up the strikeouts, but it's been a little tough for him lately. He did go 6, by the way, against the A's, but still gave up 5 hits and 4 walks. So still allowing all those base runners against a struggling offense. Remember, he only went 2 1/3 at Tampa back on the 20th, got hit out of that early. And then against Cincinnati, only went 4 2/3. So he has not been exactly sharp in his last 3 starts, but this could be a rebound. He usually has good stuff. He's usually going to give you several strikeouts at least. So I'm not against your play. I would be playing your side if I were to play that at all.
Yeah, Flaherty is kind of a mixed bag, right? He's up and down. You just don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes he'll have a great performance coming out of nowhere. I like what Fred Springer said in the comments section. He likes isolating Kelly, and it looks like the Diamondbacks are getting hot again. Kelly has an 82% hit rate on the first 5 money line. So Diamondbacks did put up 8 runs yesterday. Merrill Kelly is who Fred's discussing, and Roop going for the Giants. I feel like we've talked about him. He's got a great out pitch for his K. He just hasn't sort of harnessed it. He's a young pitcher, but he's got a big sort of curve. I like that. I like the thought process with Kelly, and this Giants offense has been anemic. So I can certainly get involved there. I think that's a good look. Any opinion there with the Snakes hosting the Giants?
Yeah, Kelly is juiced, by the way, over 17.5. Gallen, by the way, got there last night. Ended up going 7 after a little bit of a rocky start. So a pretty good finish there for Zach Gallen. Over strikeouts, I think maybe could be at least a lean. It's not something I bet yet, but Bet Rivers right now over 5.5 minus 136 would be how I would maybe play Merrill Kelly from this standpoint if you want to attack him in any of the pitcher props tonight.
I am going to play that Arizona money line. I do think they're starting to hit. So now it's a little higher than the first 5, that is, the two-way first 5. It's a little higher than the game money line, which is minus 150. The first 5 two-way money line, minus 159. But I do like the Snakes offense. I think that they finally broke out, as Fred was alluding to. I've been saying I think they play much better at home, and the Giants have just been sputtering like no other. So I do like the D-backs here. Now, I had a couple same game parlays yesterday where you can go total outs. Kelly, if you wanted to throw that in there, and maybe a first 5 money line too. That would move it to minus 103, but you would need Kelly to get 6 full innings as his prop is 17.5 outs. Is that something you feel comfortable with Kelly against, this offense? You know what? I'm going to add that. I'm going to change that bet. So I'm going to go two-way. We'll do the game money line. So we'll, you know what? I'll keep the first 5. So I'm all over the place. Okay. First 5, same game parlay. First 5 for Arizona on the money line with Merrill Kelly over 17.5 for his pitcher's prop in terms of recorded outs. That gets you to minus 103. Do you have an issue with that?
No, not necessarily. I don't do a lot of same game parlays, but I certainly don't disagree with your thought process here. Is Arizona now making their way back over 500? This is a team that I like. This is a team that can put up a lot of runs in a hurry. So yeah, and Roop's been a little bit up and down. You mentioned the strikeout pitch is very good, but he's not a guy that really goes deep into a lot of games either. He's basically they keep him around 5 innings. So I don't have any issue with your read, at least on that one.
I did that yesterday with I did DeGrom. So that was helpful. It got me to plus money or something like that. So sometimes if you think they're absolutely correlated, which I thought was the case, then I liked it. Meanwhile, as Amish Farmer mentioned in the comments section, Oakland roaring back. 6-5 game now. Top 9, 2 outs, bases chucked. So something to keep an eye on in terms of the comeback. So if you had Tampa in the run line, ouch, you were up 6-2, and now it's 6-5. Now you're rooting for the Athletics to score so you can maybe get a cheapy 2-run shot.
Yeah, I'll be up to Kurtz here as Rooker strikes out swinging. So 6-5. Uceta has given up 4 hits and an earned here in relief. There was a leadoff jack, by the way, by Muncy to start the inning. So Rays trying to save it here. Rays have really surprised me. They've been a lot better than I thought that they were going to be. I thought that this team was going to struggle. And now you're seeing them 8 over 500. Still, that's only good enough for third in the American League East right now. But this is a team that I probably underestimated going into the season.
I don't think you're alone there. I think many teams did on that. So as we wrap things up, Wes, any official plays? I know you were going to wait for Bet Rivers to post some props, keeping an eye on things. A lot hinges on these game ones. I had my two I just mentioned. Anything for you in this episode here before we wrap things up?
Let's give the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim first five tonight, because they're going against a young kid, Didier Fuentes. Unfortunately, I don't think we have only a couple books, by the way, had his recorded outs under at 15.5. I think that was absolute hammer, but that's probably not going to be available anywhere. This is the fourth start this kid has made above Double-A. And he doesn't really go deep. I don't think he's been deeper than 5 since they called him out. So, the Braves trying to get back here. They're still 8 games under 500. And I've been a believer that the Braves are gonna get back at some point. But yeah, I think, this guy's not going more than 5 innings. And you have an Angels order, Neto, Chenul, Trout. You'll get some strikeouts there, but you'll also get some home runs. Logan O'Hoppe, has really hit the cover off the ball, does strike out quite a bit, but I don't think they want to give this guy the third time through the order. So instead of maybe playing Kikuchi, where I would lean a little bit toward Kikuchi's hits allowed prop, perhaps. I'm going to play the Angels on the first 5 and kind of go against this young man Fuentes for the Atlanta Braves. So that is one official play certainly today.
Okay, so -110. I'm glad we touched on that because that was a game we had not touched on. The Angels got theirs big underdogs, I believe, +175 yesterday, and that was a game that was really tight most of the way. So that'll be a good one. You got -110, not something you see with the Halos very often in terms of road chalk-ish, but like you mentioned, the pitching matchup certainly favors the Angels with Kikuchi on the bump, and the Rays do get out of it. With the bases chucked, full count, Kurtz does not deliver, and that is your final score. Tampa Bay 6-5 winners, so a late win on the over, I believe, and fortunate if you had the Athletics on the run line, so a bad beat if you had Rays run line as Oakland puts up 3 in the top of the 9th. Just brutal. And a dinger and a couple hits and things like that. So
that total too at 9, it was juiced to the under pretty much everywhere. That was actually one I was looking at a little bit because both these teams, even though they have a day off on Thursday, do have travel where they go on the road. Sometimes that's a spot I like. Wouldn't have liked it if I would have bet it today based on that result.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Nothing of note elsewhere. Looks like the Pirates are on their way to those 6 straight wins. So playing some good ball, and those Cardinals bats have gone pretty silent. Okay, that's going to do it for us. We have Betting Weekly Fast Break, top of the hour. Sarah's going to be hosting with Albert and Wynn. They're going to break down some NBA futures as more free agent news comes to the surface, and also look ahead to a busy WNBA card on Thursday with 5 games on that slate. So they'll join them top of the hour in a little over 15 minutes from now. But that's going to do it for Betting Weekly Hardball. We will have a show on July 4th in case you're wondering. So we are all 5 days this week during the week, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So for Wes Reynolds and everyone else behind the scenes who does all the heavy lifting, I'm Doug Kezirian. We'll see you back here tomorrow.